Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I have someone on this channel that I've been stalking for a little while now. I like everything he's putting out there, and more importantly, just he's a positive individual. And please welcome Captain Ryan to the show. How you doing, Ryan?
Good to be here. I'm doing amazing. How are you?
I'm doing very well. For the three people on the planet that don't know who Captain Ryan is, give them a 60-second bio of who you are.
Well, most people know me because I work directly with Grant Cardone, Mr. 10X. But I'm an aviation enthusiast, real estate since I was pretty much born. Since the age of 13, I've been in real estate, and overall, just a curious, very curious individual, and I love to learn.
Very cool. And let's level set everybody. You were a pilot. You were kind of, I think around 9/11, you were looking and figuring, hey, maybe there's not a lot of longevity here. I got to have a plan B, if you will. And if I remember right, it was a fourplex that you started with. What was that first investment? I could be off.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's actually spot on. So my first investing, my initial investing was actually with my uncle. We were doing fix and flips in the early 90s on smaller one unit complexes. My first, but I always wanted to do it on my own. And so my uncle, he's like, well, look, you don't have a lot of money. So what are you going to do? Like, are you going to do this the hard way, or are you going to do it the clean way? And so that's actually how I became a pilot. I actually became a pilot when I was 18 years old, and I started flying for United Express when I was 21 years old. So it kind of all came full circle because, like you mentioned, I was flying with other airline pilots that were talking about they wanted to retire when they were 65 and 70 years old. And for me, that didn't make a whole lot of sense because I'm like, okay, well, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to make a lot of money because I want to help a lot of people. So for me, I've always been driven by, I want to make money so I can help more people. And real estate has been that angle for me. So I bought my first single family house and I rented out all the rooms. And then I realized that I didn't want to live with a bunch of people. So I bought my first fourplex in Scottsdale, Arizona. And, 4 years later, I sold it and started investing with Grant. But yeah, I mean, you tell me how much detail you want me to get into.
No, I think that's good. Basically, you had a day job, you saved up some money, down payment, you bought a fourplex. That's kind of, a traditional story, if you will, starting one at a time. At which point did you realize that there really was another way to steal Grant's line, to 10x what you were doing? Was it after you joined? Or, I mean, what was that evolution like? Because that's never really been kind of clear for me.
So I built up a portfolio of 21 units.
Okay.
And for me, my goal was freedom, right? My goal in investing in real estate wasn't to create another job. It was actually to become financially free. So I had to learn the hard way. I call it the hard way, right? Because I went out there, I bought a fourplex, I went out and bought another fourplex. You have to grind. I was fix and flips. I was calling people. I was sending out postcards. I was doing all the things that you have to do in order to get deals off market. Mm-hmm. So I was actually at lunch with Grant in Chicago, and I was his pilot at the time because keep in mind I started out as Grant's pilot, and that's how I got so close to the 10x guy, right? I mean, you add value to the team. And so I asked him at lunch. I said, Grant, I said, I've always thought small my whole life. I've got 21 units. I'm 30 years old. And I said, what would you recommend to a young guy like myself? And he says, Ryan, you're going to think I'm batshit crazy, but this is what I would do. I would sell all of your units. I would sell everything, and I would invest with me. And I'm like, really? I'm like, you're crazy. I'm like, in the first question I asked them, as I said, you would let me invest with you?
Ah.
I didn't think about, hey, if I sell something, I'm going to lose something. I was shocked. I was like, you're a guy who has 35 years of experience. The banks that you talk to, they're giving you loans for 3%, 3.5%. You're buying deals that are 300, 400, 500 units. That would be a dream come true for me. And I said, so let me get this right. If I sold everything, you would let me invest with you. And he's like, yeah, I'd let you invest with me. I went home, and this you can't make this story up. I went home, I called Eddie, who's the real estate guy that I used in Arizona, and I said, list everything. Oh. I said, list it as a portfolio, list it as individuals, whatever comes back the quickest, the strongest, hit sell. And over the next 30 days, I did just that. And I ended up with 500 grand, paid the tax, ended up with 400,000 bucks. And I invested it in a portfolio in Nashville, Tennessee that was 826 units by piggybacking off of Grant's deal that he already purchased. And I let it ride. And it was the best. It's so far in my career and in my life, it has been the best investment and the best choice.
So very cool. So one thing I missed in there is, what year was this?
So I was 30. I'm 30. I'm 35 now.
So 5 years.
So I was 29. I was 29, turning 30 years old when I joined his team. So it was 2014, 2015.
Good timing. That is good. So again, you sold, you didn't exchange, right? You sold, paid the tax, just move the 400K in.
Yeah, look, that's a good point, because a lot of people think that when you buy real estate, you have to 1031 exchange, right? Mm-hmm. Like this is the magical wonder of life. It's actually not. The hardest thing about a 1031 exchange, 1031 exchanges are good. By all means, if you can 1031, it is good. But it doesn't mean it's the end all.
Yeah.
Because eventually the good old I, R, and the S is going to get their tax money, whether you're alive or when you're dead.
It's coming, yes.
But if you can, like if you can do a 1031, do it.
Yeah.
But what I found was it was I couldn't do a 1031 from an asset into an entity, which is an LLC, right?
Sure. Totally get it.
So I had to pay the tax of $100 grand. Yep. And I did that, no issues, no questions asked, and I ended up making quite a bit of money by doing that. But didn't get to use that option.
So so again, some people listening to this, first off, they would look at you going, hey, 30 years old, 21 units. By lots of accounts, people would put the check mark of success, right? He's on his way, he's doing it. Probably people would say, I wish I was him. But again, there are other options in real estate, clearly.
Well, there's other options in real estate, and you know, for me, you know, like people listening, they should never compare themselves to anybody. They should compare themselves. This is coming straight out of Grant Cardone's playbook. You should always compare yourself to your potential. 21 units will not set you free. And especially my free, like what's your definition of free, right? Like I know this isn't a motivational speech, but like my definition of free is when I could help people, when I could travel where I want, when I want, with who I want. But it's number one is helping people. Right. And so who am I going to help? I'm going to help my nephew who's 7 years old. I mean, you know, like 21 units, if that cash flows $5 grand or $6 grand per month, I mean, that's barely getting by. Like I want to be free to help 2,500 children.
That's awesome. All right. So you get in this deal at Nashville, you take the 400, you put it in, you're an LP. Oh, hi. So where does it go from there? Do you roll the equity? Are you still in it? Or, you know, how do you get to, you know, the next one, right? I mean, if you take all of it. Yeah, that's a good question. So at that time, Grant was thinking about opening up these funds and Cardone Capital to the masses, right? To all of the social media. And it was interesting because Grant was actually building up a social media, and at the same time, the crowdfunding, their new regulations opened up where we could actually go out on social media and do general solicitation. Yeah. So that's the business, right? And I've always invested next to Grant in the business. And so what ended up happening was, you fast forward 3.5 years, we ended up selling that Nashville portfolio, which was 826 units, for $30 million more than what we bought it for. Yeah. So I ended up with, and let me keep it simple. I invested 400 grand. I ended up, I'll show you my account. It has $1.1 million in it today. And we were able to use the 1031 to roll it over into a property in Austin, Texas, which is a $101 million deal. I think the deal is worth 140, but that's just between you and me. Understood.
So my 1 million, I believe it's worth minimum 3 million, but it's because I've wrote off the coattails of Grant, who negotiates the deal, who finds the deal, who has all the relationship with the broker. I mean, for me, like this is a home run play for me, because I don't have to do it all myself, right? Like, look, I agree with you. The sign behind you says one rental at a time. If you're going to play the game, if you're going to play any game, you have to play a game, right? Yeah. So if it's buy one rental at a time, if it's buy one fourplex at a time, whatever it is, you have to do it, because that's better than not doing anything.
Yes, for sure. All right. So we're going to wrap this up, this first interview, because we're going to do another one. what are the last kind of words of advice you have for someone looking at you? Maybe they look at you going, hey, he's successful because he's riding Grant's coattails, to use your words, right? I don't think that's true, by the way, because you would be successful clearly in other circumstances. It just shows. But what would you tell that person? Again, is it taking action? Is it networking? How can you motivate somebody watching this, looking at your success going, I can't duplicate what he does because I can't get close to Grant?
Yeah, I would say first start with yourself. In order to be around successful individuals, you have to think and be and act successful.
There you go.
The way that I got around successful people, and I've been around billionaires, I've been around very high net worth individuals. I'm already in a state of wealth.
Nice.
Like I was born. I don't know what it was, and most of the listeners know they have that special something inside of them. When you're born with something special, you just have to embrace it. I mean, people think I'm crazy. People think I'm weird. Grant was doing this podcast the other day, and he says, Jared's weird. Patrick is weird. Andres is weird. But Ryan Secco, that dude is a nutcase. and my girlfriend looks at me, and she's like, well, what does he mean? And I said, I'll tell you what I think he means. Difference in commitment levels from 98% and 180%.
Yeah.
Like, I don't go off a scale of 0 to 100%. Like, I am so far committed. I've traveled with the man for 6 years, every single day. You ask yourself, how many people do you know are willing to travel with a family, Grant Cardone, for 6 years, 350, 365 days a year? Not many.
Not many.
So you have to get around people and influence, and you have to add value. The quickest way to get to buying a 300-unit complex, don't keep this real estate related, right? Mm-hmm. The fastest way to get around people who are buying 400 units, 500 units, 600 units is to, the quickest way for me to do that is to get around people who are buying these properties, right? So the fastest way to get X is to be around people who X is nothing. It's not a big deal. They're doing it on a day-to-day basis. And so that way it becomes normal. The fastest way for you to become a millionaire is to be around people who are billionaires, because $1 million is no money. And that's the way I approach life.
Ryan, I think that's great. I think we'll wrap it up there. Again, if you want to be around success, around wealth, around people, find out who's doing, get near them, add value to them, and you'll be brought into the circle. I think that's excellent advice, Ryan. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
Yep.